The evening sun hung low over the Texas plains, casting long, lonely shadows across Samuel Hayes's ranch. The air was still and dry, another stark reminder of the drought that had its grip on the land. Samuel, a man carved from the very toughness of the plains, his heart weary, but kind, was saddling his horse when the distant whistle of the late train sliced through the quiet. He wasn't expecting anyone. Curiosity pulled him toward the small wooden station near his property, dust swirling around his worn boots with every step. The old train screeched to a halt, its steam hissing into the warm evening air. A few passengers stepped out, the usual mix of travelers and merchants, faces lost in the vastness of the landscape. And then he saw her. A young woman in a simple blue traveling dress stepped onto the platform, holding a single suitcase as if it were her only anchor in this new world. Her light brown hair danced in the gentle breeze, and her green eyes, full of a quiet confusion, scanned the empty station. She looked as out of place as a spring flower in the dead of winter. Feeling a pull he couldn't explain, Samuel approached her. "You seem lost," he said, his voice a low, polite rumble. The woman straightened her back, a flicker of confidence cutting through her vulnerability. "I'm Emily Carter. I was supposed to meet someone here." Her voice was a surprising mix of strength and fragility. "But no one came." The station master confirmed it. No message, no waiting coach, nothing. She was utterly alone. Just then the sky began to bleed into a strange, ominous color. The warm wind turned biting cold, and a low roar echoed from the horizon. Samuel knew that sound. It was the howl of a dust storm. "Ma'am," he said, his tone urgent, "we need to move, now." The storm hit with the speed and violence of a freight train. Day plunged into a swirling, copper-red twilight. Without a second thought, Samuel grabbed Emily's hand and rushed her toward the only shelter in sight, his ranch. Wind hammered the windows, and sand rattled against the walls like 1,000 tiny drums. The world outside simply vanished. Inside the small, warm cabin, Emily trembled, not from the storm's fury, but from the bone-deep exhaustion of her long journey. Samuel moved with a quiet efficiency, making her tea and handing her a thick wool blanket. "You're safe here," he assured her, his presence a calming force against the chaos outside. As the storm slowly exhausted itself, night fell, bringing a sharp, freezing wind. Emily stared out the window at the endless dark, a raw understanding of the land's dangers settling in her heart. And yet, for the first time since she'd left home, she didn't feel alone. Over the next 2 days, stranded by the storm's aftermath, they talked. Samuel learned that Emily was on her way to a small border town to take up a teaching position, a dream she had fought tooth and nail to achieve. He found himself admiring her fierce determination. She, in turn, was drawn to his quiet strength, the gentle kindness that lay beneath his weathered exterior. But the peace was short-lived. A group of desperate men, strangers who had been caught out on the plains, appeared at the ranch. Robbed by the storm and pushed to the edge by hunger and anger, they were ready to take what they needed by force. Samuel placed himself between them and Emily, his posture unyielding. "You've got 2 choices," he said, his voice firm as Texas bedrock. "You can eat here as my guests, or you can leave this land in peace." One of the men, wild-eyed and reckless, pulled a gun. The air crackled, ready to explode. But before a shot could be fired, Emily stepped forward, her courage a shocking, brilliant light in the tense room. "Violence won't get you what you want," she said, her voice surprisingly calm and clear. "If you're hurt or starving, let us help." Her words disarmed them more effectively than any weapon could have. True to his word, Samuel shared what he had: food, water, and blankets. The storm had broken more than just fences. It had broken spirits. The next morning, the men left, their aggression replaced by a quiet, weary gratitude. That evening, Emily stood beside Samuel under a sky impossibly clear, ablaze with cold, bright stars. "You didn't have to protect me," she said softly, her words barely disturbing the night's silence. Samuel looked at her, this brave, determined woman who had blown into his life like the storm itself. "I know," he replied simply. "But I wanted to." A world of unspoken feeling passed between them in that moment. The next day brought bright sun and the news that the roads were finally open. With a heavy heart, Emily packed her single suitcase, her journey waiting to be resumed. She paused at the doorway, turning back to him. Samuel, thank you for everything. He just tipped his hat, a classic cowboy gesture that couldn't quite hide the sadness in his eyes. You take care of yourself, Miss Carter. She climbed onto the waiting coach. But just before it pulled away, she leaned out the window, a hopeful smile lighting up her face. Maybe, she called out, her voice full of promise, I'll come back someday. He felt something stir within him, a feeling he hadn't known in years. Hope. Some storms come to destroy, but others bring you someone worth waiting for.